Hare Krishna, Tanvapanam, Ritesh Prabhu. Thank you for chanting. Thank you, Shriya Mataji, Pawan Prabhuji, Vishwanath Prabhu. Thank you for leading the chanting today. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamanniti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Desh Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Okay, so let's continue. This is our day 3 of Kartik Maha Month of Mercy. Okay, anybody would like to sing our prayer invoking the mercy of our acharyas through Thakur Vaishnava Padas Bhajan by Shri Narottam Das Thakur? All right, if nobody, then I will continue and then we'll read the translation. Okay. ठाकुर वैष्णव पद अवनीर संपद शुनो भाई होया एक मान आश्रय लोइया भजे तारे कृष्णा नाही त्यजे आर सब मोरे कारण हर सब मोरे अकारण वैष्णव चरण जल प्रेम भक्ति दीते बोल आर के हो नहीं बलवंता आर के हो नहीं बलवंता वैष्णव चरण रेणु मस्तके भूषण विनो आर नाही भूषणिरंता आर नाही भूषणिरंता तीर्थ जल पवित्र गुणे लिखियाचे पुराणे से सब भक्तिरा प्रवंचन से सब भक्तिरा प्रवंचन वैष्णवीरा पादोदक समनाहि सब वैष्णवीरा पादोदक समनहि सब याते होय वांछिता पुराण याते होय वांछिता पुराण वैष्णव संगीते मन आनंदित अनुक्षण सदा होय कृष्ण परसंग सदा होय कृष्ण परसंग दीन नरोत्तम कांदे हिया धैर्य नहीं बांधे दीन नरोत्तम कांदे हिया धैर्य नहीं बांधे मोर दशा केनो होइल भंग मोर दशा केनो होइल भंग ठाकुर वैष्णव पद अवनीर संपद शुनो भाई होया एक मान शुनो भाई होया एक मान हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Shri Vaishnava Thakur Pada प्रार्थना की जय। श्री नरोत्तम दास ठाकुर महाशय की जय। Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, anybody would like to read the translation?
I can, Prabhuji.
Yes, go Rati Mataji. Thank you.
Translation. O brother, please hear my words with rapt attention. The lotus feet of Vaishnavas are the most valuable treasure of this world. These Vaishnavas continually take shelter of Lord Krishna and worship him. They never abandon their Lord. They are liberated. They are free from the cycle of birth and death. The water that has washed the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas bestows devotional service in pure love of God. Nothing else is as effective for attaining this divine love. I place dust from the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas upon my head. I wear no other ornament. The purifying power of the waters at the various holy places of pilgrimage is described in the Puranas, although this is something of a deceptive trick. Actually, there is not anything as purifying as the water that has washed the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. This water fulfills all desires. Moment after moment, my mind finds pleasure in the association of the Vaishnavas. I always seek out the company of those who are devoted to Lord Krishna. Poor hearted Narottam Das breaks down and cries, how has this fallen condition come upon me? Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Arti Mataji. Yeah, so this is the true ornament. We don't need any other ornament. We just take the dust of the lotus feet of Vaishnava upon our head. That is the best ornament. That reminds me of the shloka that we are learning right now, Vishwanath Prabhu and I, in one of Amrendra Prabhu's classes on Subhashitams, which are beautiful Sanskrit verses which teach us how to live, what kind of qualities we need to develop, etc. So this shlok talks about what is a true ornament, right? So it goes like this. केयूरान विभूषयन्ति पुरुषं हारान चन्द्रोज्ज्वला न स्नानं न विलेपनं न कुसुमं नालाङ्कृता मूर्धजा वाणीका समलङ्करोति पुरुषं या संस्कृता धार्यति क्षीयन्ते खलु भूषणानि सततं वाग्भूषणं भूषणम्. So what this means is Keyurana Vibhujanti Purusham, what we wear on our body, the ornaments, the armbands, the Harana Chandojvala, the har that we wear on our neck, which are like moon pearls of pearls and gold and all the ornaments that people usually wear. Those are not true ornaments of a man or a woman. Right? And similarly, na snanam, na vilepanam, na kusumam, the snan that we do in the morning, the bathing, applying sandalwood, applying a kind of fragrance, or kusumam, which is flowers, decorating ourselves with flowers, or um, na snanam, na vilepanam, na kusumam, Alankrita Murdaja, having garlands, decorating our hairstyles, all these decorations that people usually do in this world, those are not the true ornament. What is the true ornament? True ornament is Van Eka Samalan Karoti Purusham. If we have cultured speech, and how do we get that? We get that by following the instructions of our acharyas, because they only speak what is truth. They only speak um, what is tied back to the Lord, right? So that is their speech. They only speak from Shastra based on the teachings of Guru and Sadhu. So that Vani Eka, that alone is our true ornament, which is cultured, refined speech, following in the footsteps of our acharyas, following in the instructions of our scriptures. Everything else, kshiyante khalu bhushanani sattam, all other ornaments, the so-called ornaments of this world, they will be kshiyante khalu. Indeed, they will deteriorate and diminish with time. There's no value of those ornaments. But the only true ornament is Vag Bhushanam Bhushanam, the quality of speech, quality of cultured, refined speech based on Shastras, based on our Acharyas. So that is the true ornament that we can um, always carry with us, and that is something that is the only ornament that will go with us. Like Brij Mohan Prabhu was here, he was talking about the Gita Sutras, those sutras, mala, of the pearls of the jewels, pearls of wisdom that we get from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Those are the true pearls that we should collect by getting the association of sadhu, guru, and shastra. Okay, so let's continue with taking our association of guru, sadhu, and shastra by being in the association of Srila Prabhupada. So we are continuing on chapter 44 with Prabhupada Lilamrit. And Prabhupada, we saw yesterday how he has done a hat trick of Pratyatras across the world. He did it in here in Chicago and in San Francisco and also in Europe. So like that. And then he has come now to Vrindavan, but Vrindavan he is apparently very angry with his disciples because they have not completed the temple that was supposed to be inaugurated on Janmashtami. Right? So again, this is transcendental anger of a guru, of a sadhu. And this is also very, very essential and very important because this purifies us when we make mistakes. That is the duty of a spiritual master, to correct, to chastise. And he's evidently very upset and very angry that he was not communicated these things properly by the devotees in Vrindavan, and he has invited all the people, all the devotees, and all influential people from around the world to come for the inauguration, but the temple is not ready, and now they are kind of in a fix. Prabhupada is now asking them what time it will be ready and trying to make a plan for future. Okay, so let's continue. From here. Anybody else would like to read today? Where can I get marble? Okay, let's continue. I'll read. So this is Surabhi Prabhu is asking Prabhupada, where can I get marble? Surabhi asked. Why are you asking me these questions? Prabhupada shouted. You are the expert. I don't know. Use your intelligence. Ultimately, Prabhupada's anger with his disciples was incidental. The reaction due them for their foolishness. It was also a way of instructing them and testing them. But deeper was Prabhupada's transcendental impatience and frustration that his devotional service in Vrindavan was still not manifested. He wanted a wonderful temple for the glory of the Krishna consciousness movement, a temple that would establish Krishna consciousness all over the world. It was an offering to his spiritual master, and he had promised it to Krishna, but still it was not completed. As for Prabhupada's disciples' failure to do the job, Prabhupada had to take the burden and the agony of that failure. His disciples were his instruments in his service to Krishna. If the instruments didn't work properly, then he suffered. Just as when one's arms and legs fail to function, the whole body suffers. His disciples' failure to carry out his desires was his loss. In a way, he felt transcendental lamentation over their failure to open the Krishna Balaram Mandir on Janmashtami day. Prabhupada's disturbance, although transcendental, was nonetheless real. It was not feigned merely for instructing, nor could the devotees cheaply cheer up their spiritual master. For Prabhupada's disciples to properly assist him, they would have to understand his transcendental mood and serve him accordingly. Prabhupada wanted practical, down-to-earth service from his disciples. They should not expect to serve him sentimentally, but should work hard. Devotional service was dynamic. Prabhupada wanted his disciples to help him with his projects to serve his Guru Maharaj, projects which, if successful, could save the world from misery. Getting concrete was a big problem. Surabhi, Gunarnava, Tejas, and others were always meditating and striving how to get cement. Yet it seemed no cement was available in the whole of India, as month after month they waited for government permission. Daily, since Prabhupada's arrival for the so-called temple opening, the devotees had been traveling by bus and rickshaw to Mathura to see if cement, even a few bags, was available. Sometimes they were cheated. One shipment of 20 bags had been cut with other materials, and when they used it in casting a column, it remained it remained soft for 4 days and finally crumbled. When at last enough cement arrived to complete the work, the devotees felt sure it had happened only because of Srila Prabhupada's presence. Prabhupada had Gunarnava count every bag of cement as it arrived. From 8 in the morning until 9:30 at night, the shipment kept coming on trucks, each truck with 4 coolies to carry the heavy bags on their backs into the storage shed. Gunarnava stood outside all day with pad and pen, making the receipt of each bag. Srila Prabhupada came out of the house several times and washed gravely. In the evening, when they were finished, he called Gunarnava in. So, how many bags? Prabhupada asked, and Gunarnava gave the exact figure. Everything is locked. Everything is locked away now? Prabhupada asked. Yes, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada talked about the cement as if talking about a shipment of gold. August 12th. Prabhupada felt very weak. It was on the afternoon of his appearance day, and he was sitting at his desk in the main room of his house. He lay down on his seat and put his head against one of the arm pillows. The following day he felt so weak he could not walk or stand. He had no appetite and ran a fever of 104 degrees. A local doctor arrived and examined Prabhupada. Malaria. He prescribed some medication, which Prabhupada took once or twice and then refused. A second doctor came and prescribed different medicines. Stop bringing these doctors, Prabhupada said. No doctor can cure me. It was August, the monsoon season, and many devotees fell sick. When Shrutakirti, who had recently returned to his post as Prabhupada's personal servant, contracted malaria, Kuladri, who had come to Vrindavan to attend the temple opening, volunteered to assist. Then Kuladri got malaria. Other devotees became ill with malaria, jaundice, dysentery, and various digestive problems. The weather was overcast, hot and humid, and thousands of varieties of insects began appearing. For several days at a time, the sky would be cloudy, the temperature in the 90s. Then the sun would come out and steam everything up with almost intolerable heat. It was Vrindavan's most unhealthy season. As Prabhupada's condition worsened, the devotees became morose and even fearful for their spiritual master's life. They brought Prabhupada's bed out where it was cooler on the small patio outside his house. His servants would massage or fan him. Days passed and Prabhupada didn't eat except for a few grapes and some slices of orange. This was the way his father had died, he said, by not eating. Such remarks frightened Prabhupada's disciples all the more, and they began visiting the samadhis of the Goswamis to pray that Prabhupada would be cured. One evening, Harikesha stayed up all night near Prabhupada's room, chanting softly a continuous kirtan of Hare Krishna. Prabhupada liked it. This kirtan, he said, is what actually gives us life. After that, devotees took turns so that there was always kirtan. Prabhupada explained that his illness was due to the sins of the ISKCON leaders, 80% of whom were not strictly following the rules and regulations, he said. Even in Vrindavan, some of the devotees weren't regularly rising at 4 a.m. Since Prabhupada was speaking little, he had only briefly mentioned this cause of his illness. But brief as it was, it crushed his disciples. As for who was guilty, each disciple would have to say for himself. But in a mood of, "Oh God, what have we done?" all the disciples in Vrindavan immediately became very attentive to the rules and regulations. In the morning Bhagavatam class, the devotees who lectured regularly discussed the subject as explained in Srila Prabhupada's books. At the time of initiation, Krishna absolves the initiate of all karmic reactions due for past sinful acts. The spiritual master, however, as the representative of Krishna, also shares in removing the disciples' karma. Krishna, being infinite, can never be affected by such karma, whereas the spiritual master, although completely pure, is finite. The spiritual master, therefore, partially suffers the reactions for a disciple's sins, sometimes becoming ill. Jiva Goswami warns that a spiritual master should not take too many disciples because of the danger of accepting an overload of karma. Not only does the spiritual master accept the previous karma of the disciples, but if the disciples commit sins after initiation, then for those also, the spiritual master may sometimes become ill. Prabhupada said that his misdeed was accepting so many disciples, but he had no choice for spreading Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master sometimes suffers, he said, so that the disciples may know. Due to our sinful activities, our spiritual master is suffering. And this always had a sobering effect on any would-be offender. But now, for the first time, Prabhupada was specifically blaming his disciples for a serious illness. By neglecting their spiritual master's most basic instructions, they were causing him great distress. They understood that their spiritual master was no ordinary malaria victim, and they knew they had to correct their mistakes and pray to Krishna that Prabhupada would get better. Prabhupada's condition was so critical and the implications of his statements so broad that his secretary, Brahmananda Swami, thought it best to notify the entire International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Because Prabhupada was pleased by the 24-hour Kirtan, Brahmananda Swami thought that this program might be introduced in every ISKCON temple in the world. A few telegrams were sent, and word quickly spread that every temple should hold continuous Kirtan, petitioning Krishna for Prabhupada's recovery. It reminded some of the senior disciples of 1967 when they had stayed up all night chanting and praying for Prabhupada's recovery from an apparent heart attack. At that time, Prabhupada had encouraged them to chant a hymn to Lord Nrsimhadev and to pray, "Our Master has not finished his work. Please protect him." Due to the sincere prayers of the devotees, Prabhupada had said Krishna had saved his life. Now in 1974, there were many more devotees than in 1967, and all of them were praying for Prabhupada's recovery. But now also, from what Prabhupada had said, there were also more devotees to misbehave and cause him pain. That message, 80% of the leaders of my disciples are not following the rules and regulations. This is why I am suffering, was not telegrammed. It was too heavy. Prabhupada had come to Vrindavan for a celebration, but there had been none. Now he was very sick, and his servant was carrying him in his arms to and fro from the bathroom. Other devotees were also massaging and serving him very sincerely, and there was always kirtan for him. Meanwhile, he simply depended on Krishna and waited to get better so that he could go on with his work. While he tolerated his condition as the mercy of Krishna, he suddenly received word that the governor of Uttar Pradesh was coming to visit him. The governor, a Muslim named Akbar Ali Khan, was traveling in the area, and Seth Bisen Chand, a friend of Prabhupada's and governor's, had recommended that the governor visit the temple. Prabhupada thought that perhaps the governor would agree to help the devotees, at least in such matters as getting government permission for steel and cement. Therefore, despite his failing health, he insisted that the devotees hold a reception in the courtyard, and he would personally go out and greet the governor. Lying on his back and speaking in a faint voice, he ordered a feast to be cooked and tables and chairs to be arranged in the courtyard. The devotees pleaded with Prabhupada to allow them to do everything themselves and tell the governor that Prabhupada was very ill. "He has come," Prabhupada said. "I have to go out and meet him." Shrutakirti dressed Prabhupada in a fresh silk dhoti. Prabhupada tried to apply the Vaishnava tilak to his forehead, but even that was a struggle and took more than 5 minutes. When they were ready to go, Prabhupada asked his servant, "Have I put on my tilak?" He seemed almost delirious from the fever and was unable to stand. Shrutakirti and others carried him in a chair and placed him in the middle of the courtyard, where they had arranged several tables with prasadam and Prabhupada's books. Just before the governor's arrival, many policemen and soldiers arrived, roping off the area, directing traffic in front of the temple, and holding people outside until the governor arrived. Gunarnava had rolled a long red carpet from the edge of the property into the temple courtyard, and devotees lined both the sides of the carpet, chanting with kartals and mridangas. When the governor arrived, Surabhi presented him with a garland. Immediately removing the garland, the governor walked down the red carpet and into the courtyard. Prabhupada stood. The devotees were amazed to see Prabhupada standing straight and shaking the governor's hand. Prabhupada and the governor stood together for a while and then sat down. Except for the guests, everyone present knew that Prabhupada was not capable of much exertion. They saw him shivering and trembling, yet trying to smile and be gracious with his guest. The devotees were in great anxiety, thinking that Prabhupada's life might end at any moment, and yet they took part in the sociable pretense along with their spiritual master. The governor, on invitation, gave a speech talking about how India's future lay in industry. Then Prabhupada stood to speak, leaning against his chair. His eyes were very dark and he was barely able to focus his vision. Although he had spoken very little for almost 2 weeks, he now spoke for 20 minutes while the governor listened politely. Afterward, Prabhupada sat and honored prasadam with the governor and his entourage of 15 ministers. After the governor left, the devotees carried Prabhupada back to his room, where he collapsed with a 105-degree temperature. Hare Krishna. The political guests and military escort gone, the temple site returned to its usual quiet, and the devotees resumed their soft kirtan, chanting by Prabhupada's bedside. Amazed at Prabhupada's strength and determination, they realized how little they themselves were actually putting forth in Krishna consciousness. After 2 full weeks of Prabhupada's fever finally broke. If a great ordeal was now over, the monsoon was ending, but the same problems of temple construction persisted, and so did Prabhupada's determination. His disciples also felt determined, and they resolved to work through all the bureaucratic delays and slow labor conditions. Now, no one was going to neglect spiritual regulation. Prabhupada spoke no more about his illness, and the devotees around the world were informed of his improvement. They could stop the emergency kirtans and go on with work as usual. Prabhupada also resumed his usual duties regarding the temple construction. One thing was clear, however. Prabhupada was completely spiritual, and the devotees working with him had engaged in a contract based on love and trust. He was taking their karma, and they had promised to follow his instructions. Now, despite his disappointment in them for their failures, that contract was still in order. If he continued to give his causeless mercy, then they could carry out his orders. Otherwise, they were without spiritual strength. For Prabhupada, there was never a question of not continuing. Even when he had suffered illness on his disciples' account, he had never thought to abandon them. After more than 2 weeks of not translating, Prabhupada resumed his work. He had been working quickly on the Chaitanya Charitamrita and was up to the discussions between Lord Chaitanya and Sanatan Goswami in Madhya Leela. Taking up where he had left off, Prabhupada again began rising early and studying the Bengali translations and commentaries. He would turn on his dictating machine and begin to speak, his voice a faint, harsh whisper. But as he continued, his voice grew stronger until by the end of an hour he was speaking normally. By the time he left Vrindavan, he was working unusually fast, producing 2 tapes a day. Bombay, from November 1974 through January 1975. Srila Prabhupada stayed in Bombay. During this time, he persistently but patiently tried to obtain the no objection certificate, which would enable him to start construction of Radharas Vihari's beautiful temple. His close involvement with this project impressed Giriraj and others who were dedicating their lives to Hare Krishna land. As Srila Prabhupada had written in Bhagavad Gita, one has no goal in life save and except acting in Krishna consciousness just to satisfy Krishna. And while working in that way, one should think of Krishna only. I have been appointed to discharge this particular duty by Krishna. While acting in such a way, one naturally has to think of Krishna. That order of Krishna comes through disciplic succession from the bona fide spiritual master. To serve in a particular project, dedicating oneself to giving the local people Krishna consciousness was an opportunity Srila Prabhupada offered every disciple. His field was the entire world, and he was like an emperor who wanted to award vast lands to loyal sons. But his awarding of lands and projects was not for material ownership, which is always illusory, but for service to the Lord. Krishna was the proprietor of everything. Therefore, a preacher could remain in a particular area of Krishna's domain and try to free the residents from the clutches of Maya. Hare Krishna land in Bombay was one of Prabhupada's major plans, but it was only gradually evolving, as if Krishna first wanted to see the devotees pass many tests of obedience to Prabhupada's order before allowing the project to manifest. Although ISKCON owned a half a dozen tenement buildings on the Juhu land, law prohibited them from evicting any of the tenants. But no law said that the owner could not add another story onto his buildings. So Srila Prabhupada had requested Mr. Sethi, a loyal life member and a construction contractor, to build rooms on the top of at least 2 of the tenement buildings. Eagerly, Mr. Sethi had undertaken this order and had obtained permission for the construction. Now that the work was completed, the rooms were being used for brahmachari quarters, offices, and book storage. At last, the devotees had vacated the straw huts that had been their residence from their first days on the land. This move not only relieved them from living in nasty, rat-infested quarters, but also allowed them to tear down the huts, and demolition of the huts had been a stipulation before the city would issue the no objection certificate. Okay, let's pause here. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay, yes, very touching and very instructive passage today. Srila Prabhupada, he says, why are you bringing me these doctors? These doctors cannot cure me. He was, as we always read, Prabhupada's disciples always say, he was always transcendental to the situation. Apparently, he is in this material world, but of course, he is in Vrindavan Dham. And for a Vaishnava, the Lord is residing in their heart. So their body itself is Vrindavan. So wherever Prabhupada is, there is Vrindavan. And his message and his instruction is very instructive. That this disease of material world is not something that's impacting him, right? But the disease was the neglect that his disciples were doing of his instructions, not even following the basic instructions, right? Of following the four regulative principles, doing your japa nicely, right? Those are the first vows. We say vows in this month of Kartik, and vows are vows, literally, like, but those are the first vows that we take when we take initiation, right? So how important those vows are. Those are the vows for the life, and we should not forget any of them at any moment. Those are things that we have to follow strictly, adhering to the principles that Srila Prabhupada and Acharyas have given us every single day of our life. So, and that's what Prabhupada is saying, that, because those 80% of the disciples have taken initiation but are not following the rules and regulations, that is the cause of Prabhupada's suffering, because spiritual master suffers for his disciples, um, misdeeds. So just like, when we as children, we grow, we are growing up, we are naughty, or we do bad things. Sometimes we are bad, we do bad things, and of course our parents have to suffer for that, right? Right. So if some naughty kids, I remember in school, when there were kids that are naughty and misbehave, teachers will give them punishment, and then teachers will also ask their parents to come and visit the principal, right? And that will be like a very bad situation for the parents to go to meet the principal and get that level of anxiety. So similarly, in the spiritual world, we as spiritual children of our spiritual masters, if we don't follow their instructions, if we misbehave, if we violate the principles um, our of our Vedic religion, and the instructions that have been given to us, then the spiritual master suffers. But again, he's so compassionate even in this situation, that he is only thinking of how he can help his disciples continue this mission forward, right? So even though he's so sick, he's meeting the governor, personally taking the time, despite such a high temperature, and his body is so frail, because he sees the hand of Krishna everywhere, and he sees that maybe this governor will help them, speeden up the construction, and eventually, which will help the disciples, engage in the service, complete this project, and stay and comfortably in the dham, and continue to preach and take this movement forward, right? So that is his transcendental vision with which he is operating. But it is good that these disciples, and of course we all are humans, we make mistakes, and that is the that is kind of a given, because we have the tendency to commit mistakes, find we are faulty, our senses are imperfect, so all these impurities are there, of the body, of the mind, but they are listening to the spiritual master, and they are realizing their mistakes, right? So that is the most important thing. So you realize your mistake, and then you correct your mistakes, right? So we are, of course, like I said, we are similar in quality to the Lord, but we are very insignificant in quantity, right? We are just part and parcel of our spiritual master, of the Lord. But in quality, we are the same, right? So we should take pride in that quality, that, yeah, we are similar as Satchitananda. We are a part and parcel of the Lord, that we have the capability to live up to that reputation. But of course, in quantity, we are very tiny and insignificant. So we should always have that humility, and that thought that we are very insignificant. But if we are in the mood of service to our spiritual master, then we become significant, because we are also Satchitananda, part and parcel of our spiritual master, and part and parcel of our Lord. Like that. Okay. Hari Bol. Anything else anybody else would like to share from today's reading?
Yeah, Prabhuji, today's is very sad, but lesson learned. Like Prabhupada is not worry about his like illness, everything, but he's more worried about his kirtan, his tilak, like how conscious he is in that stage also. Interesting. So we have to learn from him, like how he's transcendental. So, but we generally, fall down whenever we feel illness or fall in illness or something. So that is where that inspiration comes. We cannot be like that to that level immediately, but it is good learning.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever the situation externally, like that's what Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna says, right, Satadam Kirtayantam Mam Kirtanya Sada Hari. So Prabhupada is saying that, this is my my treatment. So we should always keep chanting. Right? This is the biggest treasure that Prabhupada has given us. And when we, no matter whether, of course, when we are doing our morning japa, we are sitting and with focus and attention, we are chanting, like we were saying yesterday in the discussion during Kartik, that gopis, no matter wherever they were, right, whatever situation they were in, their consciousness was always absorbed in Krishna. So that is how we should be, whether we are at work, whether we are at school, whether we are at, outside, we can always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna by we see outside the nature, we remember Krishna. Internally, we can keep chanting. If you're not speaking, our tongue is free. Internally, we can keep vibrating. And that is what Prabhupada loved so much, right? He said, this kirtan is what will save me. This is what gives us life. So, like that. And like you said, yeah, he was 70. This is 1974. So, Prabhupada was 78 years of age at this time. So, imagine, we are half of his age or, around that time, and still we are not able to follow, like you said. So it requires a lot of practice throughout the life. His life was a preparation, right? And so 78 years, and this is all now he's transcendental to everything around him. But the preparation that he did throughout his life is what got him where he was. And this is the same thing he wanted to cultivate in his disciples, which he so nicely did. And today we see so many of Prabhupada's disciples for 50 plus years after he left, so nicely they have sincerely followed his instructions. And so today we see how much the movement has grown. Prabhupada established 108 temples. They have made it grown to more than 1,000 all over the world. We have so many devotees in millions now, right? All because of the mercy and the energy that Srila Prabhupada bestowed to his disciples, who sincerely and humbly accepted it and followed in his instructions. So same thing we have to do as the next generation going forward. Okay. All right. Anything else from anybody? If not, we'll wrap it up here. And we'll again meet everybody this evening for our Karthik online program on Zoom at 7:30 p.m. And then tomorrow we'll have a home program in Kentucky at Jayarada Mataji's house. Okay. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंतकोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय जगद्गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय श्री प्रभुपाद लीलामृत की जय कार्तिक मास महामहोत्सव की जय निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल
Hari
Thank you.
Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.